And I'm here with Anthony Harding of Sassy's Exquisite, right?
Yep.
But you've written this book. You're an author. Tales of a Traveling Coffeepreneur, a journey to find the world's best coffee.
Yeah, it's been about 4 years in the making, and I just released it here yesterday.
Wow, you released it here at CoffeeCon?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I picked this up while I was waiting to talk to someone. You actually were with some people yesterday, and I started leafing through it, and I was like, this is really good. This is and very interesting, especially in the age of third wave, which is, in a way, it's gotten to be very limited lately. I think with a lot of they're all methods that really dealing with just a narrow window of coffee roasts, and I know the single origins. Yes, the variety is there, but not so much. You've got all kinds of different methods, some which, frankly, I don't think I've ever heard of before, and how you did this. So tell me a little more about this. I think our audience will really find this interesting.
Well, okay, so I spent 3 years traveling around the world looking for the best coffee that I could find, and as I was going through that, you go to a lot of different places and they do things differently everywhere. And I'm the type of person that I like to try everything that I can. So like one of my favorite things that I found in Vietnam, and it's called egg coffee, which is one of, you just don't hear about it anywhere. And what they do is they mix in an egg yolk into the coffee with some sweetened condensed milk, and it turns into almost like a coffee milkshake that's hot. And it's like one of the best things I've ever had in my life. And then, of course, the Turkish coffees and just all kinds of interesting things. And I think there's about 45 different methods that I wrote in the back of that book.
This is a yeah, it is just incredible if you're interested in brewing methods. And one thing that I have found is not only the brewing method, but the other ingredients that's mixed together. You don't shy away from that, and neither does the world, by the way. And the whole concept of just having extracted oil product called coffee is, for most of the world, not really the way coffee is consumed. Coffee's consumed as an ingredient, like a very important ingredient, maybe the base ingredient, but in really in all kinds of varied ways. And I just never realized the scope of it until I picked up your book.
Well, that's quite a compliment. To think, 4 years ago when I first got started, before I got started, I knew I liked coffee, but I didn't know how much of a passion I had for it. And my journey started when I went to the Evergreen State College, and I ended up not being able to get the classes that I wanted. And I found myself in a class that went to China and Vietnam at the end of the quarter, and while I was there, somebody put a cup of this Kopi Luwak in front of my face. And of course, this is the world famous cat poop coffee. Well, if I wouldn't have been on an adventure, I probably wouldn't have tried it. But I did, and I fell in love. And then I started researching it, and I found out how horribly the animals are treated by the farmers. And I decided I needed to do something about that. So that's why I got into the coffee industry. And then that was the beginning of my journey. And my journey took me to, I think, 9 different countries over 3 years. And it started my company.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I know that that's a controversy currently. And isn't there a certain percentage, though, of Kopi coffee that is produced naturally? That is to say, the animal is not contained, and isn't it ideal? Because again, feel free to correct me. I'm not an expert in Kopi coffee by any means, but the natural reason that Kopi coffee is prized is because the best coffee, which is natural, the critter doesn't not only isn't contained, but the part of the magic of it is rather than being force-fed coffee, it finds the coffee naturally that's the best coffee.
Yeah, exactly. So That's exactly true, and it usually costs about twice as much. So like the farm stuff in Vietnam, it costs $1,000 a kilogram, and usually the wild stuff, it's not found in Vietnam. It's more found in Thailand and Indonesia and stuff like that. But it goes for about $2,000 a kilogram. But so in my book, I've devised a plan to go through, start raising money, and go to the farmers that are producing it, and actually turn their entire plantations into what's the word I'm looking for? Like a conservation place for the animals. So they don't even realize they're being held captive. But they're very intelligent animals, and when they're young, you can litter box train them. You can teach them to, like the company of humans and everything. So you can have them in this big enclosure, and they don't even know that they're being held captive, and they're going to do it naturally. So it's going to be happy cats and happy coffee.
Well, there's captivity and there's captivity.
Exactly.
Doesn't sound a whole lot different than any corporation I've worked for.
Right.
Where most of them didn't mind my knowing I was being held captive.
Yeah, but I figure at $1,000 a kilogram, they're not going to stop producing it. So we can at least make their lives better.
Well, that is notable and laudable. And you are here at CoffeeCon. You've brought some samples, and what all have you brought here today? And is it for sale?
Yeah, I've got all my stuff for sale. So all of my coffees from Dalat, Vietnam. It's Vietnamese Highland Arabica. I've got a few different roasts with me. I've got my medium roast, my whiskey barrel aged roast, which is inspired by Starbucks Reserve Roastery. They did it a couple years ago. It took them 4 years to develop it. I tasted it a couple times and figured it out in about 2 months. And then
kind of an entrepreneurial advantage, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. And then I've got my French roast, and then another really interesting thing is my white coffee, which it's basically rocket fuel. It doesn't taste like coffee, but it is coffee. It tastes more like peanuts, but it's got about twice the caffeine content as a full city roast.
Wow.
And then I've got my teas as well. So I've got my Lotus green tea from Vietnam. I've got a color changing tea from Thailand. I've got a jasmine green tea from Vietnam and an oolong from Wudong, China.
Fantastic. That's a really, you had probably talked to Pat, I know, because the fact is, right before this, the past several weeks, I really haven't paid attention. I could, frankly, a lot of companies that are here, it's just as fun for me to come to CoffeeCon because I don't know what to expect. But this is a real treat to have you here and have the book. And I looked at the book and I got to admit, my first thought is, oh well, another author, huh? there's not that beneath the facade. There's not a whole lot of warmth necessarily between coffee authors. It's like, but even though I'm great friends with Ken Davids, and I hope to become great friends with you, I picked this up. This is a really unique book, and I urge you, if you're going to read one coffee book this year, a new one, you're looking for a new coffee book, this is the one. Tales of a Traveling Coffeepreneur, A Journey to Find the World's Best Coffee by Anthony Harding. If nothing else, it'll get you out of the box and away from corporate think on just what fine coffee is and what's out there, and some of it, I think, now I haven't looked at every recipe, but some of them I could easily see, trying to put that together at home myself in my kitchen.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun with it over the last few years. So.
Great. Well, you've got some really neat stuff here too, and I'm sure people are going to come out. We're at Fremont Studio all day. We're here from, it's already after 9, but we'll be here till 4 o'clock, and there's a great prize giveaway at the end of the day. You don't want to miss that either. So, and all the classes, we've got classes in all sorts of brewing methods, and when you buy a ticket, they're free, and there's no pre-registration for those. You just first come, first serve to the classes. So I urge you, and I want to thank you, Anthony.
Well, thanks a lot. And if you want to find my book, it's on Amazon. Just look up Anthony Harding, because Coffeepreneur, I misspelled it on purpose. There's an extra E at the end.
But you can't. You put the ones on there that. Oh, Coffeepreneur has an extra E.
Yeah, the last E there.
Oh, there's a typo in Coffeepreneur. Well, you made up the word anyway, so you're probably entitled to.
Well, what's funny is Amazon. I was fighting with Amazon. They didn't want to publish it because it had the extra E, and I told them I deliberately did that. So just help me out here.
Oh my gosh. An out-of-the-box experience for them. Anyway, we're looking forward. You could come here, and I have a feeling if you ask very nicely, Anthony would be willing to sign your copy.
Oh, so. Definitely, and I plan on signing that one for you.
Oh, well, thank you. See, it's well worth it. Do this, and anyway, thanks again, Anthony, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kevin.